Real Estate Year in Review 2023. Hey, welcome to my home office. I'm Ellis Posner, and this is one of my favorite videos I do throughout the year. It's the Year in Review. This year, however, I'm going to change the format a little bit. Typically, I talk about the deals I worked on, my transactions, all the great things I do for people, but you already know about that. So instead, I'm going to talk about the larger industry and what's been going on. Because there's some pretty big themes that affect people, whether they're buying, selling, investing, just interested in what's going on, renters, anyone. So, two of the themes people are pretty familiar with. One is what has happened with interest rates, both broadly in the economy and for real estate. The second is there's been almost no homes to sell. Inventory is at, I'm going to say, close to an all-time low, maybe a 22-year all-time low, similar to the mortgage rates being at a 22-year all-time high. And the last topic is one a lot of people aren't familiar with. And that's, we're going to see some tectonic changes in the industry due to some, what I'm going to call, realigning of the commission structures and the MLSs, the National Association of Realtors, and I'll get to that. But that last topic has probably been more interesting for folks like me working in the business than for others who only have to deal with folks like me occasionally. And then to wrap things up, of course, I'm going to talk about myself a little bit because that's what agents do. Oh, so with this new format, don't stop the video yet. You're not going to have to look at me speaking into the camera for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes or however long I rant for. I'm going to have my secret weapon, Brian Hawkins. He's right over there behind the camera. He's going to run some video in the background of some of the houses I sold this year and some B-roll photos, just, to keep you interested. Mortgage interest rates, big story this year. Big story. If you roll back a couple of years to 2021, which was just amazing, and the first half of 2022, buyers were getting around 3%, 2.5%, maybe some even lower than that. People with a little bit more challenging positions, 3.5%. And in a very short period of time, in 2022, rates doubled and more than doubled. At some points in 2023, some people were being quoted over 8% on their mortgage interest rate. Now, obviously, if people have been budgeting and planning, and all of a sudden it's costing them 40 or 50% more on the monthly payment, that put a lot of people on the sidelines, an awful lot. And I get it. We've seen low rates before last year and a half for a very long time. Big story, what's going to happen in 2024? Well, the Fed is saying they are going to cut their rates. Mortgage interest rates do not track exactly with the Fed fund rates. The mortgage interest rates are more set by the 10-year Treasury bond, which of course is affected by the Fed funds rate. So we're expecting at this point to see 3 rate cuts, maybe starting in March or April. And whether it's 2 or 3, we will see mortgage rates most likely trending down for another reason that has nothing to do with what the Fed is doing. And that's because the banks, for some reason, during this run-up of rates, also seem to have added to their margin, meaning how much they're making on the money. So when there were a ton of mortgages and a ton of refis, the bank's margins were also somewhat tighter than what they became when the cost of money went up. Makes no sense. I'm not a lender, I'm not a banker, I don't get why they did that. They all seem to have done it across the board. One of the questions I had for a lot of the lenders last year, or this year in 2023, was when you guys were refining everyone at like 2.5%, did you think you were going to refinance them again? Of course not. So anyway, that's what's going on with the mortgage rates. It's going to get better. People seem to think the tipping point that will bring buyers back into the market is when we get to 5.5. But now I'm seeing people saying, yeah, we can we can work with 6, 5.5. So we will see a lot of pent-up demand. The next big topic in real estate for 2023, looking back, was the inventory. There was like almost no homes for sale. A lot of times I'd be refreshing my browser like, no, there really can't be 23 listings in North Redondo Beach. It was just crazy. And it was every market. It was not just the places I work from the beach to the desert. It was nationally. In fact, inventory and sales have been also a 20 plus year, well, not quite 20, since 2008. We're probably going to see close to the low in 2008, which was after the financial crisis. That was 4.1 million approximately homes sold across the U.S. This year isn't done as of the time I'm filming this, but we're probably going to be right about there, maybe a little bit higher, a little bit lower. Now, a lot of people are going to say, yeah, of course, sales are lower because the mortgage rates are higher, and that's one part of it. But also, of course, people are going to say sales are lower because mortgage rates are higher and there are less buyers. Yes, that is true, but there's just simply been fewer homes on the market, a lot fewer homes on the market. And so the good news for that, for sellers, has been the prices have held. If anything, in some markets they've gone up, in some markets they've gone down a little bit, but in general, prices have held. The reasons prices have held steady and gone possibly slightly up is supply and demand. A lot of people are just simply not selling. They're not going to say, well, I'm going to get out of my mortgage of $1 million at 2.5% and buy a place for $2 million and pay 8%. It's just not going to happen. So what you do see, people are still moving out of state, and yes, people are still coming back to California. I know that's hard to believe, but not for me because it's a great place to live. But people are going in both directions. But the average person is not saying, I want a more modern house. I'm going to sell this one and buy another one and pay 50% more. That's just not where the market's been. So it's people moving out of the state. It's job relocations. It's deaths. It's divorces. It's family formation. It's change of circumstances. And those are the ones that get listed. And with so few listings, even with less buyers, it has held the prices flat, up in some instances, and in some places a little bit down. Again, good for a homeowner, not that great if you're a buyer. Every buyer would, of course, like to see the prices lower. Every homeowner would like to see them higher, but not what happened. What's going to happen in 2024? Well, there might be some more properties on the market, but with lower rates, there will be more buyers. We might see price acceleration again. We might not see price acceleration, but you are going to see a little bit more competitive market, I believe. Now we're going to get to the last big theme of 2023, which, as I said, the general public may not be aware of. There's been a number of class action lawsuits against realtor associations, particularly the National Association of Realtors, and some of the large brokerages. And it's not for any specific action, it's for the common practice of how commissions have been paid for the last 100 plus years. So for the last 100 years or so, if you list your house, you agree to pay a certain commission. And since about 1990, somewhat, with the broker cooperation, you agree that your agent, your listing broker, the listing agent, can give part of that commission to the agent representing the buyer. Well, now, a bunch of lawyers, I'm going to save my nasty comments about lawyers, maybe not for that long, but a bunch of lawyers decided, oh, this is terrible, this violates all kind of antitrust laws and everything else. I don't know about antitrust laws, I'm not a lawyer. What I do know is that buyers need representation. On the largest financial transaction of their life, they need someone to help them. People like me. Yeah, that's kind of self-serving, but they need someone to help them through the process. In fact, one of the main reasons a lot of younger buyers don't buy and they continue to rent as they don't understand the process. And can be a very complicated process, particularly in California. I make it easier if I'm your agent, but in general, there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of moving parts, and those buyers need help. Well, the people that brought these lawsuits, these are not lawsuits against me. I'm not involved in this, thank God. Thank you, thank you. It's against the large brokerages, and I'm a small broker, and against the associations, the MLSs. They want the buyers to pay their agent directly. Well, that's going to add a lot of cost to the transaction. And it's not going to help the market whatsoever. Create a lot of confusion, actually. So no one knows how this is going to play out yet. Some people think it's going to take years with all the appeals. There's a lot of add-on lawsuits. There's all kind of things going on. But it is going to be the most likely the most substantial disruption in the industry yet. So we had all these tech companies that were going to quote unquote disrupt the industry. You know, so-and-so is a tech company, not a brokerage. And you had all these various other, iBuyers and other things were going to be disruptive because everyone's been going after this big pool of commissions. It's a lot of money. And it looks like these lawsuits will make those changes. Some of the fallouts may be the part-time agents are gone. I'm good with that. I do this full-time. I work hard every day. I have a lot of experience, a lot to offer people. You got a part-timer that maybe does a deal every other year. If they want to be gone, that's fine. You will probably see some consolidation in the brokerages. You'll see more specialization. You're going to see a lot more. Now, when and if we start to see this in 2024, that's a whole nother matter. But be aware of it, because if you're working with an agent as a buyer and then they say to you, gee, you're going to have to pay me, that agent isn't being greedy. You don't want to go to work and not get paid. I don't want to go to work and not get paid. Even though if you're an agent, that happens a lot of times. Happens an awful lot of times. People cancel deals. They work with someone else, part of the business. Enough about that. I'm going to talk about me for a little bit. So during 2023, I just did my usual thing. A lot of sales in the beach, particularly Redondo Beach, where I've probably sold more properties than most other agents. Not the large teams, other individual agents like me. Doing my thing out in the desert, yeah, from the beach to the desert. It's interesting because a lot of my clients in LA, they have houses out in the desert. They think it's great, just one agent to work with. And that's a whole different kind of market. I'll talk about that separately. And other than, Redondo, Manhattan, Hermosa Beach, my usual thing, Torrance, PV, whenever the market gets slower, I go back to my theme of have car, will travel. So when I was out in Garden Grove, I was in West LA, Westchester, north of the airport. And I always look at, if I can add value for a buyer or a seller, then yeah, it's jump in the car. We live in Southern California. That's what we do. We drive. And if I can't add value, even if you're my next door neighbors don't take this seriously. But if I can't add value, then I'm not the right agent for you. And I just look to add value and help people with whatever they're doing. So that's it. 2023 is in the rearview mirror. On to 2024, and let's go for it.